Mix is presented by California Pizza Kitchen. Visit them today at the Holiday Resort Hotel.
Hi everybody, I'm Sabrina Salas-Matinani and welcome to another episode of In the Mix. This weekend, the Talafofo Bay Surf Classic will take over the bay. This event is in partnership with the University of Guam Endowment Foundation to raise money for the UOG Marine Lab. And you know what that means. We're going surfing.
It was 5 years ago researchers at the University of Guam Marine Lab began seeing signs of coral bleaching. This is when corals turn white as a result of warmer sea temperatures brought on by global warming. When this happens, corals become more susceptible to diseases and could die. Some corals, however, are able to recover when favorable water temperatures return. At the Marine Lab, multiple studies are underway to study this phenomenon. UOG Marine Lab Director Dr. Tom Schills.
What we see on the reefs these days is a lot of coral bleaching. Since 2013, basically, coral bleaching events on Guam have become more frequent and also been taking place at a much larger geographical scale. So a lot of the reef communities, particularly in the shallow zone, just over the reef flat, have bleached over the since 2013, practically annually. And a lot of die-off has been taking place.
Dr. Sarah Lemmer is currently analyzing data from an experiment she recently conducted in which samples of coral were taken from Apra Harbor. The coral are from different colonies but of the same species. The pieces of coral were placed into different tanks in which the water temperature was increased just a little, not enough for them to bleach, but to make them uncomfortable. This was done for 10 days. After that, the temperature was increased to simulate the bleaching effect.
And we're trying to see if the corals that spend some time in a warmer water temperature survive better because they had time to prepare for the heat shock, basically. And what we're doing after that is that we are monitoring their recovery to see if some of the corals recover faster or better, how many are dying. And so what you can see in our tanks is that we have very different stages of health.
Dr. Lemmer says they're looking at the genes that are expressed in the coral tissues to understand how they manage and deal with the bleaching and stress at the molecular level.
We're trying to see if there's any kind of genetic adaptation or genetic differences that allow some corals to be stronger than the others.
For Dr. Laurie Raymundo, she is working on coral health and restoration.
We're focusing on those survivors and trying to culture them and hoping that they can be reestablished in certain places. So I'm trying to figure out what places are likely to support corals, what human stressors we are imposing on the corals that will perhaps make them not do so well, because trying to control local stressors is also a big part of getting them able to survive coral bleaching as well.
To give you a better idea of why this research is so important, you have to understand why corals are important to Guam economically and ecologically.
Remember that coral reefs, first of all, create fish habitat. Fish disappear when they don't have habitat. So corals are living, it's like a living skeleton. So when your bone fractures, you can have it set and it will repair itself because it's alive. So bone is alive. Once you die, that bone loses its capacity to repair itself. So once corals die, they no longer have the capacity to repair themselves and to form more reef. So that means that the habitat that fish require break down, so they disappear. And also, we don't have that coastline protection against storms anymore. So you know that when you go out to Tumon, for instance, you see the waves breaking really far offshore, and then you have this shallow protected area, so that by the time a storm hits, the waves are kind of not so big as they hit our coastline. So if we don't have reef out there actually cementing and building more structure, then we will lose that protection over time.
It was only a natural choice for Lotus Surf Shop owner Fred Mendiola to partner with the UOG Endowment Foundation for the Talafofo Bay Surf Classic.
With the whole UOG thing, is this year we wanted to do something and have a little bit more of an interesting kind of event where it's not just for hardcore surf riders, like wave riders that just ride waves and try to compete against each other. So we thought, let's just ask the Marine Lab if we end up donating the proceeds to the Marine Lab, which that's our plan, is to donate the proceeds to the Marine Lab, they could also come through with some demos or displays or information that they can hand out and share with the beachgoers on that day.
Mendiola's been hosting the surfing competition collectively for more than a decade. He's also been surfing for more than 40 years. He's a certified coach and comes from a family of surfers. It's also a passion that's shared with his 12-year-old son, Noah. For me, I've never touched a surfboard, so in remix style, I met Fred at Lotus, learned about the different types of boards, and it was off to the bay for my very first lesson.
Paddle, long stroke, look straight, 2, 3. Good, getting there.
Yes, I wore a life jacket at first, but after I got more comfortable in the water, I threw it to the side and decided to go for it. All right, so I'm not that great, more like terrible. But all fun aside, we can't stress enough the importance of funding the Marine Lab because the research they're conducting is invaluable. For example, sequencing coral genomes to understand them on a molecular level can be costly. But once you're able to expand these sorts of experiments to different species, then we will be able to have a global idea of how most of the coral species around Guam's reefs are going to react in the future.
There's something very particular about the Marine Lab at UOG is that it's very well located. So there's a lot of people around the world studying corals, but we are lucky to have the Marine Lab right there where we can access the reef very easily. We were also, Guam is placed in this area in the Pacific that is actually one of the most threatened area with increased temperatures. So the predictions show that this area around here is going to be the hottest. So it's a very interesting place to be, and we're lucky to be standing right here. And now we have a genetics lab that allows us to do all this, top research on genetics right here on site.
Oh, and for the record, I may have wiped out during my surf lesson multiple times, but your girl's not a quitter. Check it out.
To register for the surf tournament, check out the Lotus Surf Shop in Tumon and make sure to tell them In the Mix sent you. We're back after this.